Good afternoon and welcome to the special meeting of council of April 7th, 2025. I call this meeting to order at 3 p.m. We have one councillor missing, Councillor Baker, but we do have quorum, so we'll carry on. We have one piece of business today, which is to review the capital budget, so I will take a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Deputy Mayor Kroll and a seconder, Councillor Andrew. All those in favor? Motion is carried. So we'll carry on to our new business. I will give the floor to the CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to be brief, we appreciated the feedback we got from councillors after our last meeting on this. Wanda and her staff have been very busy, as have some of the directors, especially those who have a lot of items in the budget, have been busy going through looking at the feedback that you had and reprioritizing some items. I think it's fair to say there was almost a consensus on some items to at least defer until we can come up with, I think, a better long-term plan on how we're going to address our infrastructure, which hopefully will flow out of some strategic planning. So you will see a lot of the work that Wanda has done and her staff have been just for the most part, is just deferring some of those projects in year one to year two until we can come back and say this is a coherent way of the way we want to go and deal with these items moving forward. It also probably gives a little more manageable work plan for the year. Some of them were going to be tough to get them all done, but we don't want to get in a position where we're always putting the budget in and then we're carrying over large amounts every year. But by the same token, we're hoping that we can get approval as early as possible so we don't get in that situation, because the longer we delay approving a budget, the longer it is to be able to get work done, and we're coming into construction season for ordering materials, etc. I think the information Wanda will present today is probably a little more summarized than you saw earlier. You got a lot of very detailed before, but we've taken the feedback and tried to boil it down into what we think is a manageable plan for this year. There may have been things people thought shouldn't be done a couple times. We've had to put in, they do have to be in a couple cases because a license expires. For example, fuel tanks. You cannot defer that because you cannot use them if they go past their date that's stamped on them, and a couple of health and safety items. But for the most part, we've taken your feedback into account. So with that, I guess I'll let Wanda move forward with the plan.
I have a summary slide presentation to share, which captures the report information that was sent out to you last week, as well as some of the updated slides from our March 24th meeting. Once again, we still have within the plan those capital expenditures that will renew or replace aging infrastructure and equipment. There continues to be some new items in there, but they are, you will see, much lower percentage of the total. And as CIO Matheson said, we do have some items in there that are very much around risk mitigation, whether that's a current safety hazard or trying to mitigate future risks, for example, stormwater, those kinds of issues. So you'll see those in there. Our challenges have not changed from last time, but I felt it was important for us to still show that these challenges remain, regardless of whether or not we have reduced the ask for approval for this year. These challenges will remain, and in some cases, those challenges will be escalated because we have, for example, with the arena, we have moved quite a number of the requested expenditures from this current year to the upcoming year. These would have been ones that would be included in the Facility Condition Index report that suggested due in 26, a group in 27, 28. Moving all of 26 to 27 may actually bring our conditions assessment down. So If it's at fair, it may move to poor the longer we wait. And our advisors have said that without these recommended repairs, it will impact that assessment. It may reduce the lifespan of the building itself, depending on how long we defer it. So I wanted to be sure that people were aware that that is still a risk, and we may be increasing our risks by making those deferrals. So our overall capital plan, now you'll see, is $12 million for 25-26. The total 5-year plan remains at $49,372,25. For those who recall the number from last time, it is $20,000 more over the course of the 5 years because we are deferring 2 large-scale items within the arena. We do have to do 2 other small projects at $10,000 each, just to buy us that year. So the overall cost of the plan went up $20,000 as a result. You can see that we have 42 projects that we are anticipating completing, and of those 42 projects, only 6 of those would be what one would consider new. From a priority ranking, they are 27 at high for the current year, 11 at medium, and 4 at low. So 64% are in that high priority area, with 26% in medium and 10.
Can I just get you to move your mic? So it's
Oh, sorry. Is that better?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sorry, I got too much spread here. Okay, so that would be 64% at high, 26% at medium, and only 10% in the low category. Some of those lower categories are there because there is a significant contribution or support from either a community group or provincial area. So we are not financing it very much ourselves. So that's why those remain there. And when we get into the funding slide, we'll have more detail. Yes?
I didn't, sorry, Mr. Chair, Mayor David. And you are the chair, but do we, if something is high priority, would that fall into that area where the warranty is out, that would automatically go? Okay, that kind of.
Yes.
Do you want to take questions as we go along, or would
We
you rather?
certainly can.
Okay, so we'll open it up as we go along.
Yep.
Just put your light on and all.
Yep.
We'll take your question, okay?
Okay.
Oh, we got another one.
Sure.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Director Matthews. So, Director, you just, a comment that you just made when you said it increased risks by making deferrals.
Right.
So, particularly with the arena budget, it's sorry. What's the arena this year? 400,000, is that?
400, yeah,
406?
460, 600.
Yeah, 406. So, I'm assuming part of that is the condenser.
Correct.
And I'm assuming the rest of it is the refrige equipment or a part thereof?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I thought the condenser was 221, right?
Yeah, 221.
600, yeah.
And I can move into the next slide to
I
look at
guess,
details.
I
Yep.
guess what I'm asking
Yeah.
is when you're talking about increasing the risk by making deferrals. So is there anything in particular that we are deferring that will increase our risk, that we should be aware of?
Right, okay. So, and maybe Director
Thank you.
Lancho could speak to that. My understanding, and he will be able to give you more clarity, in the report, it said our condition is fair. Here are all the things you need to do over the course of the upcoming year over year to maintain its condition or to improve its condition. So if we do not do the I'm just looking here to see what we put forward initially, 4.7, I think it was. Yeah, 4.7 million dollars. Then at the time span that they suggested, that there is a risk by not doing it, that it will deteriorate the actual assessment value. Because we didn't do it when they suggested, it may cause other things to go wrong and reduce our position, but I will hand it over to Director Langell for.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep.
So, when we're looking at the facility condition index, by pushing a lot of these critical tasks that are assigned for this year by the consultant, it's gonna take that facility from a fair to a poor to a critical state in the next few years. And what that can cause is other secondary pieces of the facility breaking down and having issues. If you're looking at it as a whole of a building, council is deferring the majority of the work for it. So if you're looking at the long term of the building, if you want to renovate, a lot of this deferral could cause that renovation in the future to be more money or not even possible with some of the secondary effects.
Yeah. And I think that, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's the longer we defer it.
Yes.
As well. So what we've put forward is only doing a few of the items right away and improving that in the plan. And then as council has broader discussions around whether the arena will be a refurbishment or a new or so on, once we have that decision, we can go back and revisit those budget requests, assign them over the 5 years and bring forward those pieces for decision to council.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this is, I know you're saying according to the consultant study that was done. But there wasn't, there's never been sort of a secondary type of opinion done on this, right? This is just according to the consultant, to the feasibility study that was done, correct?
For the entire project, yes.
Yes.
For the electrical component, we've had 2 different companies in, plus the SRA. And all 3 of them have said it should be replaced as soon as possible.
Okay.
What we're proposing is doing a bare minimum.
Yeah.
So the health and safety is taken care of.
Yeah.
So we can continue operating for the future.
So other than the condenser, it's the electrical pieces?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So what is being brought forward is an ask for 2026 of $12 million. You can see where 10.5 million of that is public works and engineering, 101,000 in admin, 78,000 in economic development, police 186.4, and parks and recreation 1,128,000. There were reductions in all areas over the prior except for administration. Administration, there was some requests and feedback from council around some fencing that was scheduled to be completed this year and was deferred. That remains. That fencing is for an area that we have, it's for the area that's down. Yeah, down at the ground level floor. And there are individuals as well as materials being found there, and there is a generator there. So from a safety point of view, we want to make sure that that is contained. So that was one item that council had. There was some back and forth, I think, around whether or not that was necessary, but that was considered a health and safety matter. That's why that piece for admin didn't change. However, each of the other areas have taken feedback and removed some of those items that were there. They were moved into 2027. So when you look at 2027, now that ask is up to 15,692,000. Looking at it in more detail, this would have been pre-circulated to council last week. We have significant reduction in parks and recreation, and for the most part, there were some items in other areas removed, but for the most part, it's that 4.3 million of the arena being pushed forward. That would be the most material change overall.
So in engineering and public works, I know it's looking like the washrooms on Station Lane were removed, correct?
Correct.
And what other piece was removed there? It wasn't a big reduction, I think it was 400,000 in total, but there's something else was removed, unless I'm dreaming.
South of Common Avenue.
Okay.
Just one second. Just get my eyes in the right place.
Stormwater on Condon?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was one project under flood mitigation that was removed for
Okay.
200,000.
Yeah.
And then there was the public washroom as
Right.
well, which was another 200,000.
Can I bring you up real quickly? I just want to question for Director Bell. If I can, the washroom I can totally understand, but the mitigation of the stormwater mitigation on Condon, do you have any opinion on putting that off for a year? Is that something you'd recommend, or can you say anything about that?
I did recommend.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. I did recommend that, Mayor. That amount of money, it's been in there now for 2, if not 3.
Okay.
Budget seasons. We're trying to find the best location to mitigate the upstream. We're calling it south of Condon, but that's in between the unbuilt Hilts Road and Condon itself, that flowage that starts well upstream and comes down. It's still unsure. It is touched on in the stormwater master plan, but not in any great detail. We
Okay.
need to look at where a stormwater management area may go. Options are limited. I don't want to get into it here, I guess, but it could involve land acquisition in order to be able to, it will involve, we don't own any of the land, so in order to build anything, we need to first acquire land. That 200, in my opinion, based on that and the timing, couldn't happen in this fiscal and probably won't happen for that amount of money.
okay,
It'll cost that much to build it, but we need to own the land first in order to build it.
okay. No, that's good, thank you. Councillor Savage?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Director Bell. I was going to ask the same question about the stormwater improvements south of Condon. With regards to the washroom, I think that's something that I'm disappointed to see that off, but I understand that we're trying to shade this down as much as we can. I think it's really, really important to have some public washrooms, and I don't know if there's some other way that perhaps we could look at renting a space and doing leasehold improvements, or I think I mentioned that in my email that I would copy to everybody.
A better option, sorry.
No, that's sorry, I
Councillor.
just continue to go on.
I
Sorry,
agree
Andy.
100%. It's needed.
Yeah.
Freestanding building, albeit it was meant to be a very small, modest building. The prices that came in last year were in that 185.
Yes.
That's why we showed a budget item of 200. It was more than twice the last year's budget of, I think, 80 or 85.
Right.
To build a small washroom. We were going to put it along the station lane area, use it as a bike shelter and outdoor washroom, just a single unit washroom. But the pricing of that is astronomical.
Yeah.
There were some opportunities that I think had come up just late last week after this presentation had been made and those cuts already made, but one option was to perhaps partner with the Lions, who we own the building of the Lions Hall. They're looking at doing their own upgrades to their washrooms, and Lindsay Young met with them, I think, and Councillor Baker, to see what could happen as sort of a different location, also in the downtown, in an existing building. Still would be, I think, a substantial amount of money. You're not going to do it for 20 or 30. It's still going to be, tens of thousands, if not
Right.
More.
or if not more.
Yeah,
But
okay.
renovations and something that could be accessed after hours when they're not in that building. So it needs to be a multi, one for them and one for us, or somehow, done under the same renovation contract. But
Okay,
it didn't certainly make the
Yeah,
cut
I
to
understand. Okay.
timing, because it came up late last week.
okay, great. Thank you.
Any other, you're good?
I'm fine with Director Bell
Okay.
and the response. I just think it's something as a council I would like to see happen, and maybe as a council we'll look
Down the line.
down the line. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Baker?
Is it appropriate to talk about that washroom?
Probably not, because wasn't part of this budget, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how these priorities were set, because we were given a list of what priorities were from staff. And then they came back with, well, these have been cut. So has council decided on what those priorities were? Are they just suggestions from staff? Because it definitely wasn't involved in those discussions.
Well, we all had the opportunity to submit things, and I don't think you did, correct?
I put forward something to.
Did you? Okay,
council.
sorry.
Director?
Yeah, we all had the opportunity to submit areas that we thought that we'd like to cut or push back. And then they've come back together kind of with consensus and put this forward.
With respect, sir, I don't think there has been consensus. It's just been put forward, and then there has been no consensus sought on what those cuts are to be.
Well, that's what we're doing today too. We're gonna have that conversation today too.
Okay.
So this is an updated, we don't have to approve this today. I'm sure we'd like to have it approved, but that's what we're doing here today, so.
So from staff's perspective, all of the feedback that I received, we looked at and said, are there any themes? So if we had feedback from 6 councillors and all 6 councillors said, this is an item that we would prefer not to have in, this would be something we delay, or if we had 4 out of 6 say, or whatever, we would have taken that into an account in what we put forward as a second option. As well, our directors and chief looked at what those items were and said, this has to happen from a safety perspective because we have to do a minimum amount to the electrical to ensure if somebody has to come in and work on it, they're not at risk of electrocution. So these are things that we had to be sure were there. So staff recommended, we would recommend that those remain. So that's really how we came up with version 2. And as the mayor said, it's about debating what is remaining in there and whether or not that is something that the full council is comfortable with us moving forward with. Is that fair, Mayor?
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
So I look like a point to speak to the washrooms later
Yeah.
when it's appropriate, sir. Thank you.
Sure. Probably your best avenue would to bring a request for decision to council, because you'd have to
Okay.
have, and you could do that at CAC if you wanted to, if there's time. Probably should have had that in late last week, though. We can chat about that after,
Thank you.
though.
I'd like to learn that process.
Yeah,
Thank
because
you.
there's so many pieces to that too, like, it's one thing to fund the capital part of it, but I mean, it's the maintenance of it and who's gonna keep them. So there's a lot of pieces there, it's not just
Who does what?
yeah, everything sounds easy, but there's a lot of moving parts there, so. But we can discuss that after and look at that. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have some questions for Director Bell, if I may. I hate to bring you back up, Dave. My first question is, the phase 1 of the Stormwater Master Plan, is that design only, or is there anything, construction or any kind of mitigation happening in that year, in this year?
In that $500,000
Yes.
item?
Yes.
Certainly wouldn't be the intention that would all be design. It is getting late already, even though we're just setting a budget, but it's April. Certainly design would have to happen first. We put a very vague $500,000 placeholder in there for top priorities coming out of the report.
Okay.
So we do expect certainly some of that to be construction if practical. But certainly no, I don't see that all being just design.
Okay, that's great. And the Donald Hills Connector at 5.5 million, it's a huge project. Is it practical to think that it can be completed in 25, 26, all that 5.5 million, or will part of that have to be carried over into next year?
I don't anticipate any carryover. No, that does sound like a lot of money to spend in one construction season. Coming out of last week's council rather. That may have been last month as well, end of March, both last week and last month. We have moved ahead with, certainly the award. They were in today to pick up contracts for signing and provide us with shop drawings. So the line items that are in there are big ticket items, but I do foresee that happening in right up until winter works of 25 and into 26 through till the end of this now current fiscal.
Okay, that's
March
great.
26. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to Director Matthews. Director Matthews, under debt assumptions for fiscal 2026, you are based on the following. The second point there where it says assets with a useful life of 20 years are financed via a 10-year serial repayment with a balloon payment in year 10. So in year 10,
Yes.
it can be refinanced, it's,
For another 5 years to make it 15 would be what we would be anticipating.
could you go 10? You could,
We could.
You could,
But
okay.
at that point, because the asset, we're anticipating its life is 20 years.
right, okay,
If it may live longer, it may be less. So
Okay.
we would, at this point in our assumptions, we're assuming 15.
Okay.
So that we're not paying for it beyond its useful life.
I
If it
understand.
happens to
okay.
no longer be operational at less than 20 years.
Okay, nope, that's
Yeah.
perfect, and I just have,
Yeah.
one other question. It was around where you talk about equipment reserves are insufficient to cover the projected cost.
Mm-hmm. And we-
This deficit will be offset by deed transfer
Right.
tax reserves.
Yeah, and
So-
we do have a slide upcoming about that.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. It might be easier when we get there,
It probably will
if
be.
that's okay.
All right, carry on.
Okay. So so you will have noticed too, economic development, as I said, that has had a reduction as well of 18,000, which would be not adding any new benches and bike racks. So if you look into Parks and Recreation, there were changes, in Kentville Police, there was changes as well. And that would be the removal of the drone, as we talked about last time. That is a new item. Within Parks and Recreation, you will have seen that there were changes in all areas other than equipment. So those items that we did not foresee having funding support and weren't an absolute occupational health and safety issue or other kind of a hazard, those have been removed and deferred to the following year.
Can I just, well, you're on that, and the director can speak, maybe just remind me exactly which ones are in there for this year
For which?
for the Parks and Recreation?
For building? and-
Yeah, so the green space is,
So green space at 25,000.
Yeah.
That is the culvert bridge at the entry of Memorial Park
Okay.
and the Walter Wood Playground.
perfect, yeah.
Yep.
And the Parks and Playground, that's KCA, or that's?
Parks and playgrounds. What would be in there would be KCA Playground.
Yeah.
Finishing the project for the Oak Dean Park.
Mm-hmm.
And the replacement of the sections of fencing that are required to be replaced at the basketball court at
Okay.
Oak Dean.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
The other piece that is still in there is the batting cages.
Mhm.
The batting cages are there because they are to be 80% confirmed
Funded,
funding
yep.
by the Minor Ball Association. So it's a $15,000 commitment for us, and they will pay
Mm-hmm.
60,000. So given that opportunity, we left that there.
And if the funding doesn't come out, then it comes back to us anyway, so.
Correct.
Or it's not done,
If-
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
and that is confirmed
Yeah,
funding.
oh, perfect, okay.
Yep.
All right, Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to the chair, I guess would be, sorry, through you to Director Matthews. So sitting on the Police Commission, I had the opportunity to hear from the chief and also the deputy chief with regards to the DJI Matrix 350 drone at 57.6. So I know there was quite a bit of discussion around, I'm looking at Councillor Hamilton, because I know we weren't always all on the same page, and then eventually we were after the deputy chief had some pretty detailed emails. And it concerns me somewhat that we are taking that out of the budget. And I'm just wondering if maybe the chief might want to make a comment on that. I know there was I know there was various words tossed around with respect to what it would be used for, but it certainly came through to me as something that could be very, very important in certain circumstances. Thank you.
It absolutely could be. I guess when we sat down, we looked at this as an organizational, as the town, with such a huge capital budget ask going forward. I'd hate to put something on, where, no, we can't have it, or we need it because there's money tied to it. There's all kinds of things we could really utilize to have. Can we do our job without it? Yes. Can we do it better with it? Yes. But based on the capital asks, us as directors sat down and, you know, there need to be some changes made to what was put forth, so. As we stated early on, it was at a medium risk for us as a capital ask. And it's not that it's going away, it will be carried over till next year. But yes, that's basically our decisions. And I guess from my standpoint, if I'm gonna put something forward at a high risk, I hope that you take what we're giving you when you make your decisions, right? Whether or not the stuff is passed, because he's the expert in their fields, right? So that's how we looked at it. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
So Mayor, is there any way that an item like this could be sort of held in, I don't know what the word is, abeyance? Unless there was some, like maybe there was some sort of a grant, and I'm looking at Alicia down the road potentially for it, and I don't know what kind of grant that would fall under. Maybe there isn't one, but I just put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Just a question to the chief. You don't have to stand up. I'm just wondering if search and rescue has a drone.
To my knowledge, they don't, but I'm not 100% on that. We do have it's an older MOU, but we're working on a new MOU with Search and Rescue. So if that is something that they have, yes, we could certainly look at that too.
And do we know who has drones in the town?
In the town of Kentville?
Yes.
As in people or
Yes.
organizations?
Citizens
Oh
or
my goodness.
organizations?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
You don't know?
Yeah, we're not gonna be utilizing a civilian's drone in a policing organization. So, if another, like i.e. fire or search and rescue or DND or something like that had access to one, we could utilize it, then that's a different, yeah.
D&D is a good thought.
Yeah.
Aldershot may have one as well.
Yeah, we actually just had a meeting with them today on something else, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And for you, for the director here, the KCA playground, this may be for recreation or not. I'm just wondering about, is that us paying for the whole playground, or, you know, is there a contribution coming from the school? Because I believe I'm correct when I say that that playground was put in by the Parent-Teacher Association. So I don't think we own that playground.
There's been no conversations with the school for funding. This is not a full replacement. A full replacement of that playground would be in excess of $500,000 to $1 million, especially with the accessibility by design that's coming out, or Access by Design 2030, which you will see in the next 5-year plan, because we'll be getting to that point. This is more just for the swing bridge that connects a part of the playground together. And it's something that Nick Gerard has been working on to ensure that we have it up to place. It's one of those health and safety issues again, ensuring that our children that are using it in the community are safe when they're utilizing our spaces.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I just think that, you know, there should be a contribution coming from the school in some regard.
I can reach out to them.
Yep, since that's their playground. Okay, thank you.
And there could be funding, I mean, grants at some point for some of that too, right? Maybe?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we'll be applying to the community small equipment grant through the province. It's for anything under 25,000, and they cover up to 50%. So that's how we'll be utilizing that grant this year. We'll be utilizing a lot of grants for a lot of different projects, and we'll make sure we get as much money as we can to go to these projects. Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. Any other questions on the details of what's included in the 12 million? Okay. So we also have continued to bring forward the sanitary sewer request of 151,800 to a total of 2,052,300 for the end of the 5-year plan. There were no changes made to that budget. There is no utilization of debt for that. It is all coming from either their capital equipment reserve or their depreciation reserve. What this slide is showing is the funding sources for it looked bigger on my screen, my apologies. The funding sources for the 2025-26, 12 million. You can see that the debt portion, which is the teal color, is 31%, whereas before that was around 50%. We also have funding sources from federal, provincial, our CCBF or former gas tax, as well as contributions from other sources. And I thought I would share with you what is confirmed for those funding sources so you are aware. So of the total ask, there is 5,182,000 confirmed. So close to 4.5 of that would be the ICIP funding, which is through Public Works and Engineering. Our patrol car comes through our operational budget. We have confirmed funding from the Kentville Minor Ball Association for the 60,000 for the batting cages. A portion of one of the projects within engineering and public works would be a local improvement, so that would be a chargeback, and we have funding for the pool. So those are the confirmed sources. What is yet to be confirmed would be the CCBF funds. Now, generally speaking, we get those, we have a contract to get those every year. We just don't know the dollar value. So we've put in for 505,000. Last year, we would have received around 480. So we would expect to at least get what we got last year. We have put forward requests for the stormwater master plan at 50%, the trunk paving at 50%. So those together are 750. We've also put forward a request from the province for the culvert bridge, and we have a request going forward for tariff funding for the condenser of 42.5 and for funding for 665,000 for the forgetting what it's called, give me a second, South Main Street. For the sidewalk and for the stormwater replacement. So that is just under 2 million. That is unconfirmed, but we know that there are funding envelopes available. We put in applications and we are hoping to be successful. If we are not successful in all of those, we would come back to council to say we were unsuccessful in getting the 500,000 of the million for paving. Do we want to spend the full million? Here's how we will fund it. Or it would need to be deferred and we make an application again next year. We also have funding sources of 1.1 million for reserves. So a great deal of the funding is being, a great deal of the financing is coming from sources outside of the town. But if we move over to look at debt, which I think gets back to Councillor Savage's question, for debt financing, we are looking at 3.7, a little over 3.7 million. I'm just trying to find, when we brought it forward the last time, we were, 5.3. For the current year, sorry, I was looking at the next year. So it was 3.7 and 8.4, and then in 26-27, the debt was 5.3 and it's up to 9.7, but that is
We've deferred, yeah.
is a deferred discussion. But so our debt has gone down by 4.7 million in this plan because of the changes that we have made. Overall, what we're utilizing debt for in the plan right now, as you can see, is mostly for those areas where we would have a 50 to 73% cost sharing. So those make up 82% of the debt that we've put forward of the 3.7. There are three other items that we would be looking at using debt for. That would be the street sweeper and the what we are currently going to do for the arena, so the 406,000. So those are the only two areas for the 18% of the debt. So when we look at how we are utilizing that and not using reserves, it brings us to the next slide, where you can see that the equipment reserve, based on what we've put forward, would be overspent by 26-27. But in the current year, we would have enough reserve balances for all of the items we've put forward. And that is why in the report that was sent out last week, I would suggest that we would use the deed transfer tax reserve, which if we are able to achieve $500,000 a year, there would have a balance of 375 million. We could offset the equipment against that. The Kentville futures amount remains the same by motion of council last year to keep that as a contingency, so that we have availability of that funding if an opportunity arises, not to deplete the reserves beyond that 500,000. Does that answer your question, Councillor Savage?
Thank you, Mayor, through you to Director Matthews. Yes, it does answer my question. With regards to the funds that are accumulated under deed transfer tax, are we permitted, are we allowed to have those invested at all? Or I'm assuming our current financial institution pays us so much on that reserve, and it's probably prime minus something.
Correct.
Do we know what that prime minus is?
It's not coming to the top of my mind.
Okay. Prime minus.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not coming to the top of my
But
mind.
we could generate a little bit of interest. Not, probably not a little bit, quite a bit.
It's not a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
And the interest on the reserves go back, we put it back into the reserve.
Right. Yes, I knew that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
that's helpful.
Okay, thank you.
I want to say it's 0.75, but that might be our borrowing rate. I think it's 0.75.
Prime
It's 0.75,
so that's fairly hefty.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
which also helps us in some of our other reserves as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so when we look at whether or not the debt amount is amenable to council, if it isn't, and you choose to use some of the deed transfer, there would be sufficient funds in 25-26 to cover, say, the street sweeper, it's 337,000. If there was a wish to move some in, but there's certainly, for this year, it would be challenged. You couldn't fund all of the other items that are at the 50% because the investment's quite high, but those are a couple of areas that before we get our debt, there is an opportunity to make that change, and that we don't ask for debt for this year until next spring. Okay? Welcome. So that is our reserves, no significant changes there. Our CCBF, as you can see, we're still projecting that to be a negative by 26-27 because we've assumed no change to our CCBF contributions. We hope that they will go up, and I expect, given past history, that they might go up enough to cover those deficits in future years because they are fairly immaterial based on the plan. When we look at our debt ratio has certainly changed for I went out as far as 28. That would have our 25, 26 purchases for debt embedded in it, which would bring us from a 6.7% projection for this year up to an 8.3 at the end of 2028. I didn't go any further because until we have a sense of what we're going to do with the arena, that really drives that number. So we would look at that at a later time, but it certainly keeps us in a low risk level at the debt level that we have. At last council, we had a discussion around debt capacity, and I had communication with representatives of Treasury Board, and we hadn't initiated the process, but had begun to talk about it. They now are in receipt of a whole lot of data for them to do that evaluation for us. New people there, they're excited to be asked to do the work because they haven't had a chance to do it, but it will take some time for them to bring that back to us. But it will give us good information as we look at the upcoming 4 years.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. On the operating reserve side, no changes. That is there just more so for council to be aware of what that reserve balance looks like in the event that there is a request that we try and remove more funds from general tax revenue to come over to capital, what your capacity may be to do that. We are certainly in the moderate range and moving up into the higher end because we are not putting a significant amount of money into the operating reserves each year. Last year, we had a good year for moving money in. This year, we'll likely be depleting it some, and that is embedded in this. So that is where we've landed for this piece. And from our perspective, we are looking for council to consider just the year one budget for 25-26 for approval. And we would recommend to council that it may just acknowledge receipt of the other 4 years of the budget, knowing that you will be doing some strategic priority work around some of our larger infrastructure projects, and that we could revisit years 2 to year 5 once those priorities are more ironed out. So that would be what we're putting forward to council today.
Okay, well, let's put that recommendation on the floor first, and then we'll go, unless you have more questions for Director Matthews before we, any other questions? Deputy Mayor Kroll.
Yes, hello, through to the director. What do you foresee the future tax rates for Kentville will be with this budget, especially looking at the debt servicing that you've got lined up here for the 5-year plan?
So the debt servicing...
Or the tax rates, how do you see the tax rates moving?
Just trying to get that number in front of me. So when I look at the debt servicing, for the upcoming year, we have some debt coming off, some coming on. So if we look at 2025-26 compared to the prior year and even moving into 2027-28, our debt servicing is $981,000 projected for next year. The following year is around $981,000, and it's only up to about $1,030,000 the following year. So what is coming forward is very insubstantial change up to 28. Moving into 2027. Moving into 28 will be the challenge. If we embed the full amount of the arena in there, we will be over 400,000. So it's that decision point that is really it.
Are you okay.
So the current, this is only, of course, one component of the current tax rate, but for 25-26 and 26-27, the principal and interest payments would not be significantly different. Therefore, that wouldn't cause us to need to change the rate for that.
Well, I'm looking at, you're asking for 27 million in this budget for debt. And at some point in time,
over 5 years.
Yes, I realize that.
Yes.
So over the 5 years or 7 years or 8 years into the future, we're going to be looking at significant tax increases unless we have unless we have a great deal of building going on, which we can't necessarily guarantee, or our assessment base somehow increases, or we change something in our budget in order to offset that. So I guess I'm a bit scared looking at these numbers in order to approve, even in principle, the 4 years, the final 4 years of this plan.
Yeah. And from a staff perspective, and certainly the CAO can correct me, but from our perspective, we're asking council to approve year one and just acknowledge that you've received something from staff for the other years. We're not asking you to approve it in principle. The language there was very purposeful that way because we haven't changed the overall 49 million and the debt load for that. So it didn't feel comfortable from my point of view to ask you to approve something we don't have the debt capacity back on, and we don't have firm guidance from council around some of those larger pieces of infrastructure. And if we choose, our strategic initiatives coordinator probably has more detail around this, but I know when we were looking at doing some piecemeal work for some of these items, it's really considered repair and renewal. There's not a lot of opportunity for grants. But if we chose to say we were going to do a major renovation of the arena and we were doing different components of it over phases, there may be opportunities for funding. So of course, we're going to keep investigating how we might do some of these things once we get better guidance from council. But we were not asking you to approve in principle the following 4 years because of that concern that was raised at the last
But you
meeting.
have, just again, Renee, you have to table this with the province the 5 years, so.
At the end of September, that's correct.
So are we expecting to change the budget if we have a strat plan in place by then? Or are we going to be tabling this budget with the province?
I'm not sure how CAO feels, but in the recommendation that says once you have some priorities around year 2 and 5, that we would then take that and revisit year 2 to 5 and bring forward a different budget for you to approve in principle that is more acceptable based on your priorities. So that would be my goal, unless CAO Matheson had a different thought that I was not in line with.
No, it's just, we have to have the longer-term conversation, and it's not just 5 years.
No, it's,
It's 50.
right.
Yeah.
We gotta start looking 50 years out. We have streets that are 60 years old that haven't been resurfaced, and we don't have a master plan of how we're gonna deal with it. So it's, that's why we're pushing for, we've gotta look at everything we have. We gotta see what our infrastructure deficit is and start planning to put money aside, and it's going to be painful. When you see the numbers, will scare you, but a lot of those assets that are in the 50-year category are assets which you cannot get funding to replace, because it is very much, if you followed the history of the provincial governments, parties of every stripe is local streets are a local responsibility. We'll hand out little bits and peanuts here and there in certain years, but you're never going to get significant funding to do it, but you're going to have to do it at some point. So that, to come and say, you can't take this to the province, you could submit it and they'll just say, well, you've got to do something better. But we just said, well, we can take a second crack at it in a few months and make some things and send back. But those aren't cast in stone. When you submit the 5-year plan, you can change it all entirely the next year and resubmit. So whether you change it before September or not is really neither here nor there, but you may get more questions asked back of you. That's all it'll cause in the short term.
Yeah. And I think because we went forward and asked for the debt capacity review from Treasury Board, and of course the department's aware, that coupled with if we had to put forward what we have here, they would know that council is giving them the information, but doing their due diligence around whether or not this is a viable option as well.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. So just to make sure I'm clear on understanding, we're just going to approve this budget 1 year. Next year, we may go through the similar process that we did this year, looking at what's in each of those. So like what's in Parks and Recreation for next year. And then we can look at each item.
We may at that point have our priorities set too, and we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So just focusing on one. All right.
Focus on
Focusing on
just
the
on the
1
1
year.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not a question, it's more of a comment, and I think this capital budget process has certainly been more intense for me this year, and it certainly does cause me to pause and really look at what are the things that are top priorities for us and our citizens that we have to do. And I just wanted to thank the director and the rest of the directors for the work that they put into it, because I know it's very much a moving target, but thank you for all the work that went into it. Yeah, we appreciate it.
Oops. Thank you. Councillor Andrew.
Just for clarity, so we will be presenting something to the province. We will have something for the province in September.
Yes.
And it, depending on where we are, it may not be this precisely, but worst
Right.
case scenario, or if we don't get there, then it'll be this.
It would be this.
Okay,
Yes.
thank
Yeah. But we wouldn't be moving forward to do any purchases except related to 25, 26.
Right, because that's the only one that we've approved, so.
'Cause it'd be
Or we
all
will
of them.
approve, hopefully. All right, if there's no other questions, that recommendation would be for council to approve the 2025-2026 town capital budget of $12 million. If somebody could move that, Councillor Savage, and a seconder, Councillor Andrew.
Is there also, in further, that council received the capital investment plan for the next?
In the, sorry?
Is
We
that
thought we
separate?
would do it in 3.
We were gonna do them in three. Yeah, we'll do them in three motions. Is there any discussion on this? Well, Councillor Baker.
I'm uncomfortable putting things off to the future, and we keep putting things off and putting things off. I realize it would be expedient, and I appreciate that staff have put a lot of work into this and bringing this forward, but I think we've heard around this table before that the longer that we put off saving, or the longer that we put off replacing, it might be politically expedient right now, but to jump from a 31% to a 62% debt service rate in 1 year is a significant ask, and so we're up against the wall next year. I think we're just putting off into the future what we're afraid to look at right now. And I think that needs to be a way that we are financially managing Kentville in a different way that's been done in the past, is not patching holes and waiting till the thing falls apart and letting somebody else deal with it. I think we've got to put on our big boy pants and good big girl pants and look at this and go, we're waiting for something else to happen, right? We need to strategize this differently. I don't see a significant amount of savings going into changing the way Kentville has been run. I don't see an amount in here that would replace the facilities that our users are reusing now. So by moving the rec center or the pool to another year, I think we're just putting off the decisions that we need to make now so we can extend our window of financing. And we all know that if we put it off another year, we've seen costs go through the roof on a condenser. Started at, correct me if I'm wrong, 56, hit 112, and now 220 in under 3 years, somewhere in there. We're just putting off the inevitable. So I don't know if I can support this budget as is, because I think that we need to see Kentville do something different and not just go with the status quo.
Thank you. Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, well, I understand and appreciate what Councillor Baker's saying. I don't necessarily think we're putting off the inevitable. I think this is a pivotal time this is a crucial time for us as a council to really look at some of these capital assets and figure out where it is we're going, or what it is we really want to do, and what really has to be done. And I think that, not that we can speak really much about it, but the wellness center, the recreation center, and what that's going to look like, how that potentially, if it comes to fruition, is going to be cost shared. I'm never one, I call it, to put good money out after bad. I just don't think that's a good idea. So I think taking this pregnant pause, if I could so categorize it that way, and just stepping back, I should say. It's Monday, sorry. Stepping back and just really looking at everything in its entirety, and having a good strategic planning session and setting what our pillar priorities are. I think that will be helpful for me and hopefully for the remainder of council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I certainly wasn't comfortable with the 5-year outlook at all. I appreciate the work that staff has done to take us from 16.9 million down to 12. I think that was a significant cutting there. I do see that it basically went to second year. But what I feel good about is that I'm not going to be held to these numbers from year 2 to year 5, that at least in my next 3 years, I'm going to have input on each of those and what direction we're going on. And so I think when we get a strategic plan, when we sit down as a council and we say, okay, what are we going to do with the arena? You know, are we going to renovate it? Are we going to build a new one? Or are we just going to let it sink into the ground? I mean, those are things that we have to decide. What are we going to do with the pool? Are we going to continue to renovate it and hope it lasts another 10 or 15 years? Or what are we going to do? And we know what's coming up. Roads. You know, we've got miles and miles of roads that have to be paved, and we know the cost of paving. So we have a pretty good idea of what's coming at us. It's like somebody throwing snowballs at us over the next 5 years or our 4 years. And I think if I'm going to be asked just to look at the 12 million and what we've got for this year, I'm more comfortable with that than I am looking at the next 4 years. But if we're going to sit down as a group and strategic plan and those numbers can change, I'm okay with that. I know where we're going. I know what's coming at us. And so, you know, if we need to change things, we're going to decide that as a council. We're going to decide what's coming in the future. And so I'm good with the 1 year, this year. And we'll see what happens over the next ones. That's kind of where I am. I know what's coming at me, and that can help me make decisions for down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
So the whole budgeting process, I've kind of struggled with it. It's my first budget coming through, being new, and finance is not my deal. I really appreciate all the work that you've done with it and the directors have done with it. I feel a lot more comfortable that we're doing year 1. I think we do need to take a pause. I think that it's smarter for us to do some strategic planning and have a plan moving forward. And then hopefully into the years to come, we'll be better able to figure out where we're going and what we're doing. So I think I'm going to support the year 1 and see where we go. So.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Cole.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to make a comment about the strategic planning sessions that never occurred. There hasn't been a strategic plan in this town for many years. It's been at least 8, if not more years, maybe since 2019, 2018, since we've had a session such as that. I think it's a little unfair for our council to be pointed at for not having a strategic planning session. We're all really new at the, well, not all of us are really new, but we're a new council as far as a group trying to gel as a unit. And we've had some challenges. November, December, we're taken up with many meetings and just getting ourselves familiar with the job. January and February, there were other issues going on that we had to deal with as well. We just haven't had time to get to the table. We know what needs to be done. We've been told at the doors that when we campaigned what the citizens are looking for. We also know by walking around and looking around this town what needs to be done for the most part. And of course, we thank our directors, all of them, for the work that they've done and the things that they brought to the table. I just want to give us a little bit of a break as a council for not getting this done in the spring. We'll certainly, I think we need to get at this in the fall, September, October, and get it all completely done so that we know where we're going in the next 4 years or 3 years, what's left of our tenure.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to chime in real quick. I want to thank Director Matthews and all the staff. Budgets, again, are a lot of work. We know that. When I look at this one, this is like bare bones to me. It's been trimmed. There's no fat left on it. I don't see any fat left on it. it gets back to the basics, which are our roads and our facilities that do need the repair right away. So to answer your question, Councillor Baker, the pool hopefully will be open. We've addressed that for the year. The rink, we should be okay. We're gonna cross every finger and toe that we have. So I don't see those as being compromised right now. And we're gonna get some infrastructure fixed, which is in desperate need of it. So I see this myself as a really robust plan that really highlights and carries on the projects that need to be done for the year. And it's probably the best budget I have this will be my 5th budget now, because it hits on everything that I would hit on. So I will support it, and I want to thank again everybody who worked on it. It's a perfect budget. Don't like the amount, I never do, but it definitely highlights the areas that we should prioritize for this coming year. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call for the question then. To recommend to the council's approval of the 2025-2026 town capital budget of $12 million. And voting is now open. I have mine tonight. I'm working. Somebody voted for me, maybe. I think Alicia did that on purpose to keep me on my toes, so. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. So we have another recommendation for council to approve the 2025-2026 sanitary sewer capital budget of $151,817. Somebody could move that? Councillor Savage and Councillor Maxwell as a seconder. Is there any discussion on this? Call for the question. The council approved the 2025-2026 sanitary sewer capital budget of $151,817. That's okay. Voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. The third recommendation would be for council to acknowledge receipt of both town general and sanitary sewer CIPs for 2026, 2027 through 2029 to 2030 to be revisited once strategic priorities are known. Someone could move that. Councillor Savage and Councillor Andrew as a seconder. Is there any discussion on this? Call for the question. The council acknowledge receipts of both town capital and sanitary sewer capital investment plans for 2026, 2027 through 2029 to 2030 to be revisited once strategic priorities are known. And voting is now open. Voting is now closed, and the motion is carried. We've completed all our business, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Maxwell and Deputy Mayor Kroll, all those in favor? Motion is carried. We adjourned at 4:08 p.m.